This is my run and gun camera rig. Stay tuned to find out how it's built and how I use it. It all starts with the camera, and my camera of choice is Lumix S5 Mark IIX. The camera is good enough by itself to go out and shoot some static footage, sure, but if you're doing something more dynamic, you might find yourself lacking the necessary grip points to get all the angles that you want. This is when rigging out the camera starts to make sense, and you always start a camera rig with a cage. I always have my camera equipped with this amazing small rig Black Mamba cage. This cage is so amazing, it never comes off my camera even when I'm just taking pictures. If you want to learn more about this amazing cage, I have a video about that, so make sure you watch it after you watch this video, of course. Now back to our grip problem. You can greatly improve the ergonomics and stability of your camera by using a side handle. And for that, I use this rotating NATO side handle from SmallRig. According to Wikipedia, NATO is a collective security system, but it is also a rail system for the cameras. And yes, those are related. What? If you want to know more about that, you gotta subscribe because there's definitely a video coming up about that. The wider you hold the camera, the more stable you're able to hold it, and the side handle allows you to do just that. And this handle also rotates, allowing you to grip it more ergonomically. But sometimes you want to achieve those down-low shots, so it may make sense to have a handle on top. Let me add another attachment in a form of a NATO rail for this exact reason. This right here is a 50mm low-profile NATO rail from SmallRig. In a pinch, you could just relocate your side handle to the top and use it like that. But when you're running and gunning, there's just no time for that. So we gotta use a dedicated handle on top. This is a NATO top handle from, again, SmallRig. I swear I'm not sponsored by them, but hey, SmallRig, if you're watching, holla at me. Anyway, the reason I've swapped this from the original handle that came with Black Mamba cage is that a NATO handle is much easier to remove and put on again. As I've said, I also use this camera for taking pictures, and taking pictures with a top handle, that's not very convenient now, is it? So now you can do those down-low shots, but the small camera screen is just no longer cutting it. We need a screen. A bigger, better screen. Boom! Ninja 5. Yes, it's a Ninja 5. V is Roman for 5. This is 5 inches. It's a 5. Anyway, now how does this go on a camera? Why, with this Hawklock cold shoe from SmallRig, of course. Don't forget to tighten it with a hex wrench that conveniently comes included in the side handle. And now just click, and the monitor is attached. These Hawklocks are freaking awesome, and I have literally spent hundreds of monies on them. There's also a video coming up about that. Stay subscribed. Now the monitor just needs to be connected to the camera, and I am using this amazing coiled 90-degree cable from Hangton. I don't know what that company is. Anyway, let's connect this to the camera. Whoop. Whoop. Look at this. This is perfect. And since it's 90 degrees, it doesn't get in the way of using the side handle. Now slap an NPF battery into the monitor and you're off to the races, I would say, if a small NPF battery held up for any decent amount of time in this monitor. Now, of course, this large 970 battery could do the trick, but what is this? This rig is getting very front heavy, to the point where it's impossible to balance. So let's move this battery to the back of the rig to regain some of that balance. And how are we gonna do that? We're gonna do that with some 15mm rails. These are 20cm carbon fiber rails. They go into a base plate. This right here is a nice rig plate, but the lighter the better. I just happen to have this on hand. This somehow needs to be attached to the camera, but screwing this base plate into the bottom of the cage, that would be a noob move. Remember, versatility, speed, all that stuff. And for that, I'm going to use a small rig Arca Swiss clamp. Black Mamba cage already is Arca Swiss compatible at the bottom, so you don't need any extra plates, but if your cage is not Arca Swiss compatible, you can just attach an Arca Swiss plate. So let's attach this clamp to the base plate. And now we can quickly attach and detach the sled to the camera. As I want to retain compatibility with tripods just in case, I am going to add this long Arca Swiss plate to the bottom of the sled. Now let's attach that battery to the back. And for this, we can use an NPF plate on top of 50mm clamp. Use the dummy NPF that came with the monitor, put it into the monitor, connect it to the plate. There we go. Whoop. Whoop. Now slap that battery in, and you're off to the races, I would say, if I didn't want to take it up a notch. Since we are already using the 15mm rails, let's upgrade to a proper battery, a V-mount battery. For that, we will need a V-mount plate. And there are a ton of options on the market, but I have chosen this thin plate from Small Rig. All it does is just hold the battery, but that's not a problem because V-mount batteries come with their own outputs these days. Now, depending on the job, I might use a VB50 to save some weight, or a VB99 if I want to power more devices or I need a longer uninterrupted runtime. VB50 can run the monitor for a couple of hours, so that's usually enough, but it's limited in the number of ports that you can use at the same time. This time, I'm going to use a D-tap cable because it has a locking barrel jack at the other end, and that is just more secure when you are running and gunning. If needed, I could connect the battery via USB-C to the camera or use a dummy battery, but I prefer not to run down my V-mount battery quickly as these camera batteries are a lot easier to carry and actually have a pretty good runtime, and they're pretty easy to swap on the camera. You just whoop, whoop, and that's it. Also, USB-C cables stick out from the camera, and I'm not very keen on breaking that port, which is more likely when working on those dynamic shoots. Now, let's take care of the audio. And for that, I am using Rode VideoMic NTG, which I mount at the side of my top handle. However, since it's the mic that I am using right now, I'm not going to show it to you right now, but watch this nice B-roll. The whole setup weighs around 3.2 kilos depending on the batteries used, which is light enough not to break your back, but heavy enough for added stability. Notice there's nothing on this side as the camera already acts as a handle and I can access all the controls very easily because of the Black Mamba cage, which doesn't block any of the controls. Also, these knobs act as little feet for stabilizing the camera when it's stood on the ground. And finally, this rig is ready for running and gunning. And it's a perfect time to test it out in the field because there's going to be a military parade. But don't tune out just yet, because after that, I'm going to be attaching another accessory that might skyrocket your value on those client shoots. Now let's go! Well, that wasn't too bad if I say so myself. Thanks to my beautiful camera operator for going with me on this quite stressful shoot. Don't forget to give this video a like if you think that we did a decent job. Now that we've got these extra grip points, bigger monitor, beefy power, what else can we add? Wireless video. If you're working with a client on set, it makes sense to allow them to see what you're filming, and for that, I'm using this Axoon CineView transmitter. And how do we mount that? Well, let's put another 15mm clamp on these rails, and as always, speed and flexibility are the key here. So this clamp only has a hawk lock on it, and we put it on, and transmitter just snaps into place, and I can quickly remove it whether I don't need it, like so. I connect the pass-through from the monitor using this 30cm small rig HDMI cable, and because of this 90-degree cable, there's not a lot of space in here, but it works because this is actually quite short. I'm not really that worried about the latency here because clients are not going to do any focus pulling. But if I needed better latency, I would connect camera directly to my transmitter, and then I'm going to use transmitter's pass-through to the camera monitor. Now, the transmitter gets powered by barrel jacks using this cable right here. And let me put this angled side here and connect this to either of the outputs, let's say 12 volts. Now you can also balance your rig by sliding these rails so that it is perfectly balanced. And that's my run and gun rig. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comment section, and I'll see you in another video.